to mail anonymous letters to Dr. King and his wife, which were mailed shortly before he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and finishes with this suggestion. King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do it. This exact number has been selected for a specific reason. It has definite practical significance. It was 34 days before the award. You are done.
If I can interrupt, that was taken by Dr. King to mean a suggestion for suicide, was it not?
That's our understanding, Senator.
Now, if you had received such a letter, how would you have interpreted it? What would you have thought it meant?
I have read that statement. I have heard the conclusions of your staff that it was a suicide urging. I can't find any basis upon which they drew that conclusion. I think that approaching it from an objective standpoint, as I read it, I don't know what it means.
Of FBI dossier, not on JFK, but on Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., reflects then Director J. Edgar Hoover's deep suspicion and obsession with Dr. King, which was certainly no secret at the time, and it speaks to just how far he and the FBI went to try and discredit Dr. King. The dossier released today contains items that are both, and I say explosive, but they are unsubstantiated. CNN's Gary Tuckman joins us now with more. So what are you learning? What's in this stuff?
Well, Anderson, among the more than 600 documents released late today by the National Archives is this one, a never-before-seen file titled Martin Luther King Jr., A Current Analysis. It's dated March 12, 1968, and includes a number of explosive allegations about the civil rights leader who was assassinated 23 days after this report was first compiled. Among the claims detailed, Martin Luther King Jr. was involved in extramarital affairs and other sexual activities that, if true and revealed publicly, would have been devastating to Dr. King and his movement. In addition, there are pages and pages detailing Martin Luther King and his organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with alleged ties to known communists, and finally details about supposed financial improprieties by Dr. King and the SCLC. Now, I want to stress that the FBI, under Director J. Edgar Hoover at the time, had been investigating Martin Luther King Jr. for years at this point in the hopes of finding damaging information, and that we have no way of corroborating these allegations.
So what does this have to do with the investigation of the assassination of JFK?
Exactly.
I don't quite get why this document would have been in there with that.
Exactly. That's one of the many questions we have tonight, Anderson. Considering the document has no mention of John F. Kennedy or his assassination, the only clue we have in this file marked secret is it's also stamped reviewed by the FBI JFK Task Force and dated May 8th, 1994, meaning it was reviewed by the Archives JFK Task Force 23 years ago, but kept secret until today.
There are still thousands of JFK assassination documents that have not been released, right?
Right, and that's also still unclear what's going on with that. We do know that last week President Trump sent out this tweet that read in part, after strict consultation with General Kelly, the CIA, and other agencies, I will be releasing all JFK files other than the names and addresses of any person who is still living. And they are being released on a rolling basis by the National Archives. There are still thousands of pages yet to be released, so much more to come.
Good afternoon, folks. I pray you had a blessed weekend. And this is a brief, short vid. And what's come to light now, well, we've heard this before. It's about the it's supposed to be, the release was supposed to be about the JFK assassination file, but what was attached to it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s sex files, or sex documents as it's called. I know. And yes, who had it? Yes, you already know. The FBI. And who was the head director at that time of the FBI? J. Edgar Hoover. And what's so astonishing is that the hatred, the racism, I mean, that a government agency, let me tell you before we start, I'm going to give you some sound document, okay, and read to you from them. even the CIA didn't want these documents out because it makes them look in a rather, it makes the American government in a rather strange light. But it's not the American government. That's this agency or organization, shall we say. And I'm going to read to you something right now. I mean, it's pretty, yes, I know it's pretty bad. The emergence of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The persistence of Jim Crow segregation in the South, combined with growing black aspirations and expectations, was to lead directly to the confrontation that is described by many as a crucial turning point in the black struggle. It is supposed to have once said, Maui Zedong once said, it takes a single spark to start a prairie fire. The single spark was Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Okay, here we go again. The prairie fire of the civil rights movement in America was the day in 1955 that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. In the subsequent Montgomery bus boycott, blacks scored an unequivocal victory over whites. A strategy, a new leadership, and a new conscience were the product of this episode. The new leader was a young preacher at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, one Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Now, the FBI and the civil rights struggle. In the aftermath of the Brown decision and the Montgomery boycott, President Eisenhower demonstrated a marked reluctance to provide federal support to those seeking to overthrow Jim Crow segregation in the South. Eisenhower, well, I mean, it just goes on. Here we go. Eisenhower expected Hoover to explain, not defend the white South point of view. For the most part, that is what the director did, but his brief paper indicated that he stood with the segregationists. The specter of racial, this is just, we're going to go to something else. I'm going to read to you the file on this. Look, King's personal conduct. With the funds that he had received from the Ford Foundation, King held the first of two workshops in Miami, Florida, in March of 1968 to train Negro ministers in urban leadership. One Negro minister in attendance later expressed his disgust with the behind-the-scenes drinking, fornication, and homosexuality that went on at the conference. Several Negro and white prostitutes were brought in from the Miami area. Who was this prominent person? Why did they name him? Why didn't they name him? See, I'm like this. I'm not going to put anybody on any pedestal because we are all human, flesh and blood. That's the way God created us. The only one I'm going to put on the pedestal is Jesus of Nazareth. So let's get that straight. But it's mighty funny, somebody who come along for racial justice and harmony, he stood for not only blacks to be treated equal, but whites. And it's amazing how the government stood by and they didn't know everything that this guy was doing because he had tapes and files on, I'll put it this way, the organization had files on presidents as well. Now let me go on reading. They went on in a conference with several Negroes and white prostitutes were brought in from the Miami area. An all-night sex orgy was held with these prostitutes and some of the delegates in attendance. Okay, what specifically did Dr. King do? One room had a large table in it which was filled with whiskey. The two Negro, see, these are reports from FBI files. The two Negro prostitutes were paid $50 to put, see, let me tell you something. Two Negro prostitutes. You understand what I'm saying here? In history, we had about 270 slave revolts. Everyone was turned up by a house Negro. We sick, massa? We sick? You see what happened? You see, now look. But where is Dr. King? What does he say? Okay. Previous sexual... or can a variety of sex acts deviating from the normal were observed? Well, who's observing it? It is a noted fact that Dr. King was sent a box. What it was supposed to be, it was tapes and pictures of various sexual acts and orgies or whatever that was supposed to take place. And they told him to commit suicide. That's a documented fact. Or else they was going to expose him. Now, why didn't they expose him? And now, the president at that time was Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, who was he was a civil rights hero because he passed the bill. LBJ was from the South. He was he was racist. Most of the time he used the N-word, or nigger. So he used that to his advantage. He would have hung Dr. King out to dry. If all this was true, remember, well, let me read on. The activity is not new to King and his associates. As early as January of 1964, King engaged in another two-day drunken sex orgy in Washington, D.C. Many of those present engaged in sexual acts. Who? Why didn't you call their name? Who? Where are these supposed people? You see, and this is from somebody who, like the man said on TV yesterday, who may have been involved in the assassination of JFK, as well as MLK and many others. Remember, they infiltrated how do you pronounce that word? Council Pro? I don't have those files in front of me. Almost every civil rights organization in America was infiltrated, lied, and some of these people even murdered through this certain organization. And not only that, now I'm not saying everything they did was evil. They did do a lot of good. The FBI did do some good. But for the most part, they spent some of these, their money was spent infiltrating, and I'll put it this way, causing a lot of problems in Black America. And some Hispanic and white as well. One president, I'm not going to call his name, said, "We've created a monster." And you may remember his name. Now, I'm not putting anybody on any pedestal. I'm not saying Dr. King was perfect. Nobody's perfect. Well, why didn't you name? I mean, this smear campaign, the man's been dead for over 50 years. It's mighty funny after you just call people, black people, black extremists. But you didn't call any of these people that go. You didn't call Dylan Roof one. You didn't call Steve Paddock one. I did amazing. Let me go ahead and read. Throughout the ensuing years and until this date, King has continued to carry on his sexual aberrations secretly while holding himself out to be public view. This organization in the head hated MLK and tormented him all these years, and he wasn't the only one that they just hated and infiltrated. Anybody came in the name of peace, a peaceful organization. I'm not talking about all this private. I'm talking about peaceful. The man didn't come with guns and let's bomb and kill and do anything like. He came peacefully. He fought for peace and equality. Do you understand what I mean? Do I believe this from an agency that may have been involved in the assassination of? No, not at all. I don't believe it. No. I do not believe it at all. And I was looking at the video of these two young ladies, white, and it was just awesome truth that they put down. And I'm going to leave a link. And I would like for you to watch. They go and check out their video. But what are your thoughts? I mean, the man came in peace. He didn't come trying to bomb and blow people up. I don't agree with everything he said either. I'm going to give you what LBJ said. President Lyndon Baines Johnson once said, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, he'll give you somebody give him somebody to look down on, and he won't see you emptying his pockets. This is what LBJ said. He also said, I'll have those ends voting for Democrats for the next 200 years. Do you understand what we're involved in here? I just want to tell you something. God took of one blood and created all man to dwell on the face of the whole world. Do you understand that? We need God like never before. Now, I'm not saying this nobody's perfect. No, I'm not am I saying he didn't do any of this? But coming from these guys, are you for real? Again? All the dirt and damage that they've done all over the place. Really? No. Got to do better than that. And then Dr. King spoke out against Vietnam. Look at all our white and black brothers and Hispanic men who died over there, while these armchair warriors went out there to help another nation. See, that's what happened when Muhammad Ali said, I'm not going over there to fight with them people. They didn't do nothing to us. Leave a comment. What are your thoughts? Remember, keep God first. He's the only one who can do it. And we need him now more than we ever had. The nation is totally divided. God bless you, and may he keep you and cause his face to shine on you. Remember, Jesus is the light of the world. God bless you.